Well, Isabel, thank you for joining the Riley Gaines Show. And it looks like we have another little guest.
We do. My sweet sidekick bestie, Liberty, had some FOMO today, so she wanted to be on the Riley Gaines Show. I am so excited, Riley. We've known each other for years. You've been on my show a couple times, and it's just really exciting to see you launch this incredibly new adventure with the podcast and bring some more Riley light to the world. So very happy.
Oh my gosh. Well, please, of course, prior to clicking the record button, you got to witness all of the different audio and video problems, which is kind of just story of, I'll speak personally, but probably for both of us, it's kind of like story of our lives. Like you kind of figure it out as it goes, right? Yep. Like you adapt, you roll with the punches, and you smile every step of the way.
You know, I love that about you and I both, because we both kind of accidentally fell into this world. We didn't set out with a background in videography or commentary or anything. We just accidentally happened to find ourselves needing to edit videos and do podcasts one day. I love sharing stories with you and swapping stories with you about, oh my gosh, I just learned that you could do this thing on Adobe Premiere, or who knew it was that easy to add captions to something? Like, I never anticipated that, but we had to learn the hard way through watching lots of YouTube videos and figuring it out day by day. And it's incredible to see what God has been able to do through our journey the last couple months.
No, 100%. I think it's a misconception that people, we have large followings on our social media, whatever it is. But I think in with that, people assume that you've got it all figured out. We definitely don't. I wasn't going to ask you about your background, but you bring it up. Will you kind of just allude to how you found yourself here?
Yeah.
Because again, I think it's inspiring to other people who think I'm just one person. I wasn't cut out for this. I can't really make a difference. You break that mold.
Oh, well, thank you. I can give you the very, very Spark Notes version of it because I've said it many times, but we'll take a long time to do the full version. Generally speaking, I never thought that I was going to be a political commentator or host a podcast or a social media influencer for my job. I went to college with a huge passion for science and wanted to use that passion to try to help as many people as possible, and was pre-med. So my educational background is in the biomedical sciences for undergrad and grad school. But I found myself, like most people in our generation, just completely surrounded by rampant indoctrination and left-wing propaganda. Even in my classes like biology and physiology and anatomy, sitting there over a cadaver, not necessarily just learning about objective reality and biological truth, but constantly being told the same parroted talking points from my crazy professors over and over again. And that just didn't sit very well with me. I've never been one to sit down and shut up. I was a speech and debate champion in high school, and I decided to try to do something about it. And whether that was just raising my hand in my big lecture classes to tell my professors that they were wrong about something, or running for student government, I got a bit of an itch to get involved in activism in some capacity. And right around that time was served a random Facebook ad for this organization I had never heard of before called Turning Point USA. And the headline speaker for a conference they were putting on for young women was some 19, 20-year-old kid in ill-fitting suits and dad sneakers who had no idea how to dress himself, but seemed interesting to listen to, named Charlie Kirk. And in 2017, went to my first TPUSA conference back when it was a few hundred students in a hotel ballroom somewhere attached to the airport in a random city in America, and listened to speakers like Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk and some of our elected officials. And it was such an interesting opportunity to realize that I wasn't alone, and there were thousands of other young women out there on college campuses just like me who were feeling completely isolated and shut out of their university communities, but wanted that same pursuit of truth and the pursuit of what is good and true and beautiful in what we believe in as conservatives. So I went back to school and started a TPUSA chapter and really got the bug for activism and brought some speakers to my campus. We organized lots of events. I ended up having to do a lot of media when I got quite a reputation for being that conservative girl on my college campus, and was regularly targeted by the extreme left-wing clubs on campus and lots of professors. I can't tell you how many death threats and people threatening to rape me I got on the regular basis from people I sat next to in class. My one-bedroom apartment was my address was doxed online, which was really scary when I was spending most of my evenings until like 3 a.m. on my college campus studying marathon study sessions for OChem, then walking home by myself. But none of that ever dissuaded me. It just created a bigger fire in me to want to do more. And I developed a really close relationship throughout that journey with Charlie Kirk, who became a very close friend and mentor to my life. And he encouraged me, hey, I don't think you should go to medical school. I don't think that's what God is intending for your life. You should really think about doing something else, like more of what I'm doing, and become a louder voice for more students who need an example that they're not the only people out there that have their beliefs. So I sat my parents down on the couch and said, I don't think I want to be a doctor. I think I want to post videos on Instagram for a living.
I'm sure they took that well.
It was a great conversation. And as always, my parents are so unbelievably supportive of their children achieving their dreams and building their own American dreams. So they said, well, if you can figure out a way to pay for it, we are very, very, very supportive of you. Lo and behold, that was 2019 when I graduated from undergrad. I started posting publicly on social media the day after my college graduation. I just turned my Instagram public, and here we are in 2026. I've worked with pretty much every conservative media organization in the movement in some capacity. I have done so much incredible activism with the pro-life world as well. I do more TV interviews and radio than I could ever imagine. I got to work for the president for a short while through an internship at the White House in 2018, and now my husband is working for the president, and we're back in Washington, D.C. all these years later, and it's just been so incredible to see what happens when you have the courage to abandon all of your own plans for life and listen to what God has planned for you instead.
How amazing is that? And really all it took was like willingness to put yourself out there initially, and all of the opportunities that you've had, all of the amazing people that you met, your husband being one of them, all of the relationships that you've developed, the places you've been able to go. It's really, really powerful, the impact you've been able to have. And think of how much debt you saved yourself from going into by not going to medical school.
Amen. I'm watching my siblings have to navigate that in real time. So it hurt at the time feeling like you weren't as successful as the other kids going to medical school, but I'm very, very grateful now. And, you know, I do want to say one more thing based on what the beautiful characterization you just gave is that there wasn't anything like special about me. And I think people are surprised to know that there wasn't some dramatic event that happened in my life as to where I got today in 2026. But I say all the time to college students who ask me, how on earth do you get to do this for a living? You have my absolute dream job. I want to do something like this. Literally, I just started posting videos on Instagram. Like, that's it. I was a normal college student. There was no hugely defining moment in my journey as a student that launched me into activism. I just was uncomfortable with what I was seeing on my college campus and wanted to do something about it. So there is no secret ingredient. There is no secret sauce to get to do what you and I do every day. I know your journey was a little bit different with a specific event that launched you into activism, but I think there's something really powerful in reminding young people that you don't need some sort of secret membership card or a special qualifying thing happening to you in order to really impact people's lives and to tell the truth to the world.
That's it. It's merely speaking the truth. You mentioned you go from like speech and debate to now sharing a stage with incredible leaders like our press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, Cheryl Hines, which is RFK's wife. You recently did that in talking about the new Trump accounts. What can you tell us about this initiative? And I think how specifically it is an investment into our daughter's future.
It is, Riley. I am so excited about this. This might be one of my favorite things the Trump administration has introduced their entire return to this term here. And that's saying a lot because there's been some amazing initiatives championed by this president and our cabinet. But just a few days ago, I was invited by the administration to help launch the Trump accounts, which are investment accounts for our babies in this quest to revive the American family. And I shared the stage on a new moms panel with Caroline Leavitt and some folks from Moms for America, as well as Cheryl Hines, who is the wife, of course, of Secretary Kennedy. And we got to chat about what these accounts are going to mean for our children and how American families can take advantage of this. For those that may not have been paying attention, or maybe the media didn't cover it as well as they should have this last week or so, these Trump accounts are essentially a free opportunity available to you because of our Treasury Department to start a trust fund for your baby right now if they are born during this presidential administration. So if you give birth to a baby between January 1st of 2025 and the end of 2028 during this Trump term, you have an option to start a new investment account that already has $1,000 put into it by the United States United States Treasury Department that is a trust account and will grow with the stock market over time. And then every year, you and your spouse can put in $5,000 of your own money that is then deferred out of your taxes every year to help grow that and continue investing in your child's education. We also know that there are several companies that are also paying into these Trump accounts and trying to honor that for a company incentive for their employees. So many companies around the country, including Turning Point USA, announced recently that they will be matching that $1,000 grant that the Treasury Department has already put into these accounts as well. Basically, when you shake all of the math out of this thing, if you put all of the maximum contributions into this account from the time your child is born until the time they turn 28 years old, they will have over $1 million based on stock market averages waiting for them to launch their life. And kind of like a 529 college savings plan, you can use this for educational expenses. Our kids can use this to buy a house someday, which is an advantage we never had access to growing up. And now here we are at 28, wishing we had something like that. And also you can use these to start your own business, which I know so many families are really excited about. One more caveat I'll explain as well is that you don't have to have a brand new baby to open one of these Trump accounts. Any child under 18 can have one open for them as soon as they're launching this summer, and you can learn more about them at trumpaccounts.gov. It's just the $1,000 that goes in from the Treasury Department if it is a new baby during these 4 years. So both baby Isla and baby Margot are eligible for these, which I'm so excited about. But just to know that this is a huge seismic shift in Washington, I think is important for people to wrap their heads around, because typically the status quo financially and from an economic perspective is that our politicians are constantly selling young people out to keep bailing themselves out and keep investing in failing programs that are completely bankrupting our country, like Social Security, for one, and really stealing from the financial futures of children and the next generation over and over and over again. This is the first time, really, that we've seen a market shift in Washington where we are actually investing money into our kids, not into ourselves or those who came before us. So I love it.
Yeah, it's pro-life and pro-family in every sense of the word, in policy and in practice. And you mentioned some of these companies like Turning Point that is pouring back into their employees as well. I think Steak and Shake is doing the same thing. But you had Nicki Minaj that was there, who also pledged, I don't know how much I saw. I mean, what I believe to have heard was hundreds of thousands of dollars into this investment as well. And so I want to ask you, how impactful is it to the movement, to the broader conservative movement, and having someone like Nicki Minaj champion these policies?
Well, I'll tell you a cute story about that before I answer the question. I was backstage with my daughter and I'm bouncing Isla on my hip and feeding her from the little snack tray that they had out next to Caroline Levitt. And we're chatting away about mom things and how her pregnancy is going. We've been friends for a long time. We actually interned together in 2018 in the same intern class at the White House. So now it's crazy to see where life has propelled us now. But we're chatting, and then we kind of glance over to the monitor where the president is speaking on stage right on the other side of the wall. And she goes, "Oh my gosh, hang on," and whips out her phone and takes a picture, because in that moment, President Trump and Nicki Minaj started holding hands just totally randomly. It was so precious, just absolutely very, very sweet. And everyone in the room loved seeing that. But there is a metaphorical hand holding in building this larger conservative movement that I think a lot of people fail to give credit to. And this unity party concept that we've seen from the campaign trail from President Trump and now into action as they continue to lead our country through this administration is probably the most underrated part of this president's leadership, that he's bringing together classical liberals, people who would consider themselves to be very, very liberal in the last several years, pop stars, rappers, movie stars, everybody you can possibly imagine, all coming together to want to pitch in to revive the American dream and revive the American family. That speaks volumes to me, that is a compass and a North Star from our elected officials right now and our cabinet secretaries, whether that's preventing fraud from continuing to happen in all of these departments that the cabinet secretaries are in charge of, or making America healthy again and making sure our kids have access to healthy food, or these Trump accounts. Everyone seems to be so laser focused on our children and the next generation and putting the family back at the cornerstone of American society again, probably because so many of our elected officials and cabinet secretaries have young families themselves, certainly as we're seeing with the vice president, and they're expecting their next baby, which is so exciting. Seeing Nicki Minaj on stage with the president was incredibly surreal, certainly cooler than watching Cardi B try to support Kamala Harris, if you remember that fun fiasco.
Oh, yes.
But it's cool to know that we're watching people with massive spheres of influence, global phenomenons like Nicki Minaj, realize the need to get involved on offense and not just to agree here and there with some of these ideas, but to actually pitch in and do what we can to help. So she wasn't the only one financially contributing a lot of money to this program. Obviously, Michael Dell and his beautiful wife were hugely instrumental in launching the program. Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, was there speaking on stage from an investor's perspective as well. And I'm really excited to see others pitch in and put their money where their mouth is, literally, in not just agreeing with and supporting President Trump, but lifting a hand to help this initiative.
Let me tell you, when I saw that photo, like the zoomed in photo of President Trump and Nicki Minaj holding hands, it like sent me into orbit, because you have Nicki Minaj and these nails that are like
so
8 inches long. Honestly, the first thing I thought was, how in the world does she wipe her butt when she goes?
Her babies. She has a baby. And I'm like, sorry, what?
Yes. No, I know. But the visual of it, it really was the visual of unity. And I think back to several pivotal moments, especially leading up to the election back in 2024, where you've got President Trump and he welcomes RFK on stage. I never in my life thought I would see a Kennedy join the Republican camp. Especially under President Trump. You've got people like Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democrat. So I absolutely agree with that. And again, it's ironic because the other side, they claim to be the ones that embrace diversity and all of the baloney, the malarkey that we know is certainly not the case, because they don't embrace diverse thought. So that's pretty special. You got to see that and witness it, be there in person. In talking about affordability, whether it's our future generation, for our kids, or for, I think more specifically for our generation, how big of an issue do you think that is, especially coming up into 2026?
Yeah, I think it is easily one of, if not the top issue that Gen Z is paying attention to, especially as we get closer to midterms, and will play a huge factor in the 2028 elections. Interestingly, the Democrats are also correctly diagnosing the problem, I think. And that's kind of a new shift, because we've really seen us all living in two different Americas for the last several election cycles, where our priorities are completely different. What candidates are running on are completely different. And yet you watched Abigail Spanberger here in Virginia, who is now the governor here where I'm living currently, as well as Zohran Mamdani, become elected into their new positions because of this crisis of affordability and correctly diagnosing the problem that we are really struggling as young Americans to afford our groceries, to go out on a date night with our significant others, to buy a home, to start our own business, to pay off our student loans. This has been kind of a mounting problem and the snowball down the hill throughout our entire childhood. And now that we've arrived here into our adult years, we're all kind of thinking, okay, everyone's been warning about how bad this was going to get, and then we didn't do anything about it. So now what? Unlike the Democrats, though, I think Republicans have a really interesting opportunity to correctly prescribe the right solution as well as diagnosing the problem. Because while Zohran Mamdani might suggest state-owned housing and apprehending all of the apartment buildings to just be owned by the government, or Abigail Spanberger lied to you about affordability and now is trying to tax you every single time you watch Netflix or have Uber Eats delivered to your house or walk your dog. Walk your dog. I had to say to my dog who's sitting on my lap, I'm sorry, you're about to get really obese because I'm not paying a tax to the government to take you on a walk. That is absurd. We have an opportunity to actually create solutions for all of this. So just a few days ago, I sat down with Secretary Scott Turner at the White House New Media Row, who is our Housing and Urban Development Secretary. They're working on tons of different policy proposals right now from inside the administration for expanding new options for first-time home buyers and making it easier for Gen Zers to buy their own homes, and expanding production of new homes, especially as so many single-family homes have been purchased by large corporations. We know they're trying to ban these companies like Blackstone from buying up all of the single-family homes across the country. That is huge, and they're floating all kinds of other ideas right now. Secretary Kennedy is hugely passionate about making groceries more affordable as we're eating real food. How can we help incentivize making real food the affordable option, not going to McDonald's for the dollar value meal, but making sure that you can be spending less money on actual, real, nutritious food that can help you. And those are just a few examples. But I think young people are looking for not just a diagnosis that, yes, we are in an affordability crisis, so to speak, to borrow the term from Zohran Mamdani, but now what are we going to do about it? If you just promise me the moon of socialism and the government will step in and take care of all of it, we know that that's not going to work. The messaging of Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk has been so effective with this generation that socialism sucks. I don't think that's really going to work outside of the microcosm of New York City or a place like Washington, D.C. or San Francisco. Now we have to come up with our own solutions that are truly conservative and help revive the American family.
Yeah. You mentioned We Know. You're right. People in cities like New York or LA who have proven themselves to be so out of touch with reality. I think especially after the Grammys, right? The microcosm of LA this past week. So what do we do about it? You mentioned being pro-family. You've been outspoken on kind of the declining birth rates and fertility rate. What's your take on that and how it affects the prosperity of America?
This is probably the dark horse, Riley, of what's going to cripple our country if we can't deal with it right now. I know you believe this as well, and you dedicate a lot of your platform to it. But very few people are talking about this because the indoctrination has been so effective and so loud throughout our lifetime that America and the world at large are so overpopulated. We're running out of space on the planet. We all need to stop having children. We should all adopt things like the China one-child policy, because otherwise the Earth is going to literally end in 6 years because of climate change. I'm pretty sure it's been like 18 rounds of the Earth is going to end in 6 years, and here we are in 2026. I wonder how AOC feels about that now. But obviously that's not true. Actually, in reality, the world is facing a underpopulation crisis, which is crazy to think about. And no one in the mainstream media is covering this appropriately. But virtually every single developed country on the planet, and approaching underdeveloped countries as well in the third world, no one has a population replacement rate with their fertility rate. We are all in rampant decline. And the only way that you are seeing populations in almost every country around the world is through mass migration, not through increasing the fertility rate and having children. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of which is really alarming, that people are just having such a hard time conceiving children. I think it's 1 in 6 or 1 in 7 couples in America right now are diagnosed with unexplained infertility, which is total BS. There is no such thing. Actually, there's always an explanation. But I have many friends who are walking through this journey right now, and then they are just shoved into the IVF pipeline where they'll pay $30,000+ every single round to try to build a baby in a laboratory instead of figure out what's going on in their body and try to be healthier. But even more than just the fertility crisis that we've seen in the wake of the COVID crisis side of things, I'll be careful about how I say that so we don't get you censored on the internet, the food that we're eating, all of the toxins that we see in the world. The bigger problem is that our fertility rate is so low because people just aren't having kids. Nearly half of women between 18 and 45 in America say they just don't want kids ever. It's not on their radar. They don't think it would be interesting. It would ruin their life forever. They won't have friends. Their career won't continue to prosper. And that's a really severe problem, especially when men feel the exact opposite way. For young men right now, under 45, it is their number 1 or number 2 political priority to get married and have children. So this gender divide is getting so substantial in the political world, but beyond politics, right? This isn't a policy thing. This isn't about if you're a liberal or a conservative. What you've watched is several generations experience successful brainwashing that family is not important and that your life should be all about you. It is malignant narcissism at its finest. And ultimately, you can't take any of that with you, right? The legacy that you leave behind in the world will be your family, will be your children, and hopefully your children's children, and the numerous people that owe their existence thanks to your bravery and your courage now. We've convinced people that the opposite is true, that your children don't give you purpose, a cubicle and a computer screen do. And it's incredibly ironic because we call that empowering and say work is your family and your job is your identity and all of these things are so important, yet we've removed the meaning from entire generations all at once. And I'm so heartbroken about it, but excited that we're at least starting to have a conversation for how to reverse it.
And to that point, do you think that the conservative, or I guess the Republican Party, whether that's elected officials or mainstream media, right-leaning mainstream media, do you think they're finally learning how to talk to young women as opposed to, I believe, talking at them? Because I will say, being at the March for Life, I thought, especially the vice president, I thought he did such a fantastic job of speaking with clarity and with confidence, especially on the issue of being pro-life, which previous administrations, they want to like hide under the bed when it's the March for Life. They don't want to come out. Even a Republican administration, they don't want to touch this topic at all. But I actually thought how Vice President Vance, how he didn't mince his words, I actually think that's appealing to young women.
I totally agree with you, and I'm probably the vice president's biggest stan. I love him. I want him to be our next president so badly. And that speech that you're referencing, actually, that he gave at the March for Life, I thought was the most presidential he's ever sounded because he wasn't holding anything back. There was no playing politics. He was incredibly clear about a crisis, and maybe the biggest human rights crisis that any generation in our country has ever faced, and what we need to do about it. In particular, one spot really jumped out at me where he said, look, abortion is no different from how the Mayan Empire used to sacrifice children in their temples. It's no different from how ancient civilizations in the Middle East used to sacrifice their children. And until we can figure out the root cause of the destruction of human dignity, we will never get rid of abortion in our society. That was so poignantly said. It was absolutely beautiful. I think there's an interesting journey that the right is going on right now, and I'm hopeful that they are learning how to talk to young women, but I worry that so many of those who are older than us have said that they should just write off young women. Like, it's too late. Everybody's extremely leftist. You all have 37 genders and purple hair, and there's no way that we're going to change your mind. Interestingly, what I see with young women right now, and I know you interact with so many online as well, is maybe the single greatest generational opportunity to make an entire generation of young women more based than they ever have been.
Right.
If you're just willing to talk about what they're going through, stuff like dating, and the fact that dating has become a completely transactional experience through your screen instead of actually building a relationship with someone. Birth control, which is probably the most common conversation I see people having across the aisle, young women on social media right now, that they woke up one day and realized, I'm depressed, I'm fat, I'm sick all the time, I've been fed slow release poison since I was 15 years old because of acne, like most young women in our generation have. And there's something really wrong here, but why is every single trusted institution telling me I need to keep taking this thing? Maybe I should start questioning some things. Certainly abortion has been marketed to young women as the single greatest defining issue of our generation and of our womanhood. Last election cycle, young women were told, if you don't vote for someone who shares your genitalia and promotes your ability to kill your own child as you are giving birth to them, then you're not a real woman. You're a sellout.
It's so crazy when you phrase it like that, but that's exactly what happened.
It's exactly what happened. And it happens every election cycle. It happens with every major influencer. If I have to see Alex Cooper, the most powerful female podcaster, host of Call Her Daddy, in between sex episodes, scream at young women about how women don't have the same rights as men in society, with never giving you an example, by the way, because there is no right that a man has that a woman doesn't have, I will blow my brains out. I mean, it is so exhausting to constantly be lectured to and indoctrinated and brainwashed by these people who have no substance to what they are actually talking about. They are just preying on your raw emotion and hoping to tug at your heartstrings into societal change, creating this toxic empathy cycle that Allie Beth Stuckey talks so beautifully about. So I think the right, again, has a chance and an opportunity to just go a centimeter deeper than the left is going and probe at some of these things, to get into the logical conversations about all of them, and to tap into our emotions appropriately too. For example, the one issue that the left always throws out related to being pro-life or pro-choice, what I call pro-abortion, and I think we need to label it as such, is what about the proverbial case of a 10-year-old girl who was raped by her father? Are you really going to force this kid to carry a baby to term and raise that child? I think if we can back up as the right and say, okay, I am heartbroken for this beautiful young woman who never should have experienced something like this, for this little girl who is going through the deepest trauma of her life. If we really care about her and we truly feel for her, why would we ever put her through more trauma that could kill her, or at the very least will make her 6 times more likely to want to kill herself later throughout her lifetime? When we can channel our feelings to marry facts, not divorce them with saying facts don't care about your feelings, but marry them together and use empathy for good and the pursuit of what is true, I think that's when we can tap into raising this whole generation of young women to start being skeptical about the trusted institutions and take our destiny into our own hands.
That's good. And yeah, Alex Cooper, if I have to hear her say that one more time too about women losing rights, I think she signed her new deal with, I think, Spotify or iHeart or whoever.
Sirius XM now, maybe. I don't even remember,
but like for $125 million.
Oh yeah.
So what do you mean women don't have rights as you sit behind your screen, your camera, raking in the cash? Yeah. Because she also put herself out there just as you did, just as I've done. That speaks to how America is this wonderful, fantastic place, why so many people want to be here, because you can achieve those things just for being willing to. So enough with that, Alex Cooper. We have this awesome little group chat with me and you and Brett Cooper, who is also a new mom. And you sent a video the other day of your sweet little baby Isla now is mobile.
Oh,
she is crawling. Is like each stage just better than the last, or what?
It is. It is so beyond anything you've ever emotionally experienced. And I know you can speak to that too, Riley. You guys are just a couple of months behind us on all these milestones, but the time that you have your baby placed on your chest for the first time and you're a first time mom, there is no feeling in the world that ever remotely could come comparable to that. It is a depth of love that you have never experienced before. And then you feel that all over again when you feed your baby for the first time. And then you feel that all over again when they smile at you for the first time and when they say mama for the first time. Now my daughter crawled for one day and now has decided she wants to walk everywhere. So she's pulling herself up on every piece of furniture and holds my hands and walks across the room already. So that went really fast. Thank you, crawling stage. But
she's going to be a little athlete.
She absolutely is, taking after her dad that way, which is good. But to see the wheels turning in her brain and her observing the world, to see her laugh at her dog when her dog starts doing something silly, it is a greater sense of purpose than anything I've ever experienced in my life. And I think there's been such a beautiful journey in all three of us in this group chat as we share videos and photos of our babies every day and are constantly checking in. It's a realization that we could have 20 million subscribers on YouTube. We could be the president of the United States. We could do all of these amazing things. But ultimately, if our biggest legacy is what we can teach Isla and George and Margot and the values that we can pass on to them, that'll certainly be the most important thing we ever do.
It is so true. That's kind of this place I found myself in. Margot's now 4 months. And so these past 4 months, like you almost feel, and I don't think this is a good thing. I'll again speak for myself. I almost feel like obligated to be online or to be posting on X or checking what's going on in the world. But then I take a step back and I'm like, actually, I would rather just be staring at my baby right now. Amen. Everything else can wait. This is the pressing thing, is this beautiful little impressionable, vulnerable, small, fragile but resilient little human being in front of me. So that's really beautiful. And Isabel, I just love you to death. I think you're so inspiring. For me, truthfully, how you speak, how eloquent you are, how articulate, it's just is inspiring. And I think that we should soon, we've been talking about this, we need to do it. Me, you, and Brett sit down, have like a mommy and me conversation.
I am so excited about this, Riley. And before I give into that, I will also say, truly, if our daughters can grow up to have half the bravery that you do, our world is going to be a much, much, much better place. It is an honor to call you a friend and an even bigger honor to help support your work and the voice that God has given you. So thank you for what you're doing to fight for our daughters. But yes, to answer all the burning questions, I know lots of you have reached out to all three of us respectively of, hey, you guys should do something fun and like all sit down as new moms over coffee and talk about everything you're learning as new moms. We're working on it. The scheduling has been put off by weather many, many, many times, but we are working on it, and I can't wait to be back in Nashville and see all of you again so very soon.
You rock. Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you, guys.